Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. We invite coaches and athletes and industry leaders in our community who are willing to open up about their setbacks and successes to educate and inspire our listeners. On today's episode, Chad and I interview Bethany Shadburne. Bethany is an incredible individual athlete who's competed at the CrossFit Games multiple times. We talk a little bit about her background as an athlete coming from the gymnastics world and then transitioning into something completely different, doing things like triathlons, half marathons, and even doing some bodybuilding along the way before she found her love of CrossFit. Recently, she made a big move going from Texas, where she's been up to this point, and moving out to Las Vegas to train with a group of other great coaches and athletes, all looking to create kind of a training center environment to help push each other to that next level. Talk a little bit about her social media and all the things that she does on the accessory work side to help show people how she's been overcoming her injuries. I think this is a very interesting podcast. First time that we've actually had a chance to speak with Bethany, but hopefully not the last. Enjoy.
All right, Bethany, how are you doing today? Look forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, me too. This is actually my first one here in Vegas, so I'm excited to do one.
Nice. How long have you been in Vegas?
Now a little over a month. So I moved up here on the 1st of January. So yeah, it was a good New Year's, new start, kind of restart, reset. So it's been awesome.
Absolutely. I don't know about Vegas or up where you're at, Dave, but we're just about iced in here in Texas. And Bethany, I believe you were in Texas before, right?
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
There's ice over there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh
It's going to be, cold for the rest of the weekend. And on Monday, it's going to be down in something like 8 degrees or something like that, which, as you know, is very, very uncommon for Texas. So it's probably a good thing that you got out. But, certainly miss being able to call you a Texan.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll always be a Texan at heart. I was born and raised in Austin. So, I mean, all my family's over there too. So I always go over there and visit. I've already been back once. So
well,
I already have plans to come back a couple more times this year and see everybody. For
sure. Well, don't come back for the next few weeks. That's for sure. We need to probably let this pass, and hopefully it doesn't go up your way. But, doing a little research for the podcast and then just following you in general on Instagram, your name pops up on my feed fairly often. I mean, you're a regular poster. Of course, you've got a big following, but what I regularly see on there, what everyone sees on there, is a lot of accessory work. So that's really where I wanted to start is, one, what is the purpose of all the accessory work that you do? And, maybe that's an obvious question, obvious answer, but I'm sure that we can, I would certainly like to hear from your perspective, but also what is your purpose for posting, mostly accessory work, because it seems different than what a lot of athletes do. And just in general, people tend to not post the so-called unsexy type stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think it just came from my background in bodybuilding and honestly, just growing up. My dad was just a big advocate of working out, and we always did stuff in our garage gym. And so I was constantly doing things, going up to Lifetime Fitness and working out there and following personal trainers around. I would not go to school and go up to Lifetime and shadow personal trainers and stuff. Nice. So yeah, I know. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, I don't know. I just found a big love for it. And before I started personal training, when I was 17, I took a trigger point class, and I just fell in love with all the mobility and activation that came with that. And I don't know, it just became a really big part of me. And I just love being able to share that with people. Because it's something that's different that a lot of people don't do. Yeah, I share my WODs and posts, whatever, about my sponsors and stuff. But my goal on here is to just make it a big diary for everyone to see. So, and then, educate a little bit, but just bring something different to the table that, a lot of people don't do. And I actually truly enjoy doing it. I know that sounds very weird, but it's a big part of just how my body responds to things. I really have to warm it up before starting a big session of CrossFit. And because CrossFit's it's everything. It's head to toe every single day. So, and with all the injuries that I've had the past, I don't know, decade or 2 decades now, from gymnastics and just everything else that I've done, it's just really important for me to warm up my body correctly. And then also at the end, just making sure that everything's activating the right way.
Yeah, awesome. And the thing is that most athletes aren't going to enjoy that type of thing. I think,
Yeah.
very rarely they do, but there is hope because I think it can be an acquired taste. If you
Yeah.
understand the meaning behind it, and you need to overcome injuries or you need to change your mobility, and you get in there and make yourself do it. What I find with stuff that I don't like to do is the more that I make myself do it, the more I become okay with it. And I've even transferred that into actually liking certain things that I didn't before. So I think the listeners can take something away from that, and just kind of make yourself do those types of things, even just a little touch of it here and there, and hopefully you can grow to like it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Bethany's a
Bethany,
good role model in that regard.
yeah, for sure. And I think, Chad was mentioning, as you get a little bit older, you start to appreciate the value of that accessory work a little bit more, and warming up,
Yeah.
and how much that actually allows you to have some longevity with what you're doing. I'm curious if, you as an athlete, I'm sure you're in the gym hours and hours a day, where you have the ability to devote some time to the accessory work, where the average CrossFitter, the average person going into the gym on a daily basis has maybe an hour, maybe a little bit more than that. Is there anything that you would definitely recommend? Say you have an hour. Is there something that's kind of a go-to for you with regards to accessory work that you find yourself doing on a regular basis? I have a TheraBand shoulder warm-up that I've been doing for decades. Like, it's back to my early days of gymnastics, that I do almost every single day, that I kind of go back to because I find it to have a lot of value for the overhead work that I do. I'm curious if you have
Yeah.
anything that you would recommend or that you pass along to people that have short amount of time.
I think activating the core is really important, either before or after. You can kind of smash a little bit more after your workouts. But for me, if I'm not activating like my posterior chain, because I feel like a lot of CrossFitters miss out on that. And if you look at CrossFitters in the back, like the last 5 or 10 years, we don't have a whole lot of glutes going on. So I'm trying to bring that back. And I think that's super important for all the ollie lifting that we do, and honestly, everything. Especially now, like a lot of people are getting bad backs from CrossFit because of all the hinging that we're doing incorrectly. So I think activating that correctly is super, super important. And then getting the core too. So those are kind of like my go-tos right now, because I've had to take a couple of steps back the last year and a half, with some back injuries just kind of popping up again. So I was like, okay, I need to stop hinging so much, because my erectors are so big from, I don't know, years of gymnastics or whatever I did, and learning how to like flatten out the back more, get the posterior to work a little bit more, not just the hamstrings, but the glutes. So that's definitely been like a big go-to for me, is getting the glutes to fire up before I start.
I think you're speaking Chad's language here, trying to
Mm-hmm.
strengthen that posterior chain. It's one of my big
Absolutely.
weaknesses too. I think, Chad, remember you were we were talking about strong cores, and I feel like as gymnasts, we have fairly strong core. It's an area that we
Yeah.
generally work on a regular basis. But I noticed that my anterior core was much stronger than my posterior core, and my lower back specifically was just an area that Chad was like, "Whoa, you're a lot weaker there than I imagined." But I mean, it's an area that I know I've had to work on quite a bit, but I'm sure that kind of makes you happy to hear that, Chad.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Dave, I got to know all your weaknesses so I can beat you here and there when I possibly
I
can
need those.
in a workout.
Yeah,
But, it's interesting to me, Bethany, that you're talking about you hurt your back, yet, you're doing all these accessory exercises. I'm assuming before then, but still, yet you got injured. And specifically, you say that was relating to the way that you were hinging. So can you give us an example of the way that you were hinging before that you feel was improper, and how you changed that? Because one thing that really stuck out to me when I look at your Olympic lifting on your Instagram, which I like, is that you have a solid low hip start position. It's exactly where I would put your hips. And I don't know what I'm asking. One is that a new start position that you changed to after the injury?
Yeah, yes and no. Like that was definitely a little bit of a tweak that I had, but it was more during like Metcons, because that's where like
Right.
when you get tired, that's when it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So especially like dumbbell snatches from the ground, or
Mm-hmm.
dumbbell clean and jerks, or even just like snatch cycling or clean and
Yep.
jerk cycling, like you just get tired and it just
Mm-hmm.
happens. So I've had to really step back and learn how to bend down instead of just allowing myself to be tired and just like, because in the long run, sure, it's faster, but it's about longevity for me now. Like I'm 27, not that I'm super old or anything, but I've already put a lot of years and a lot of training under my belt with starting competitive gymnastics at 5 and 6. So at this point in the game, and especially being hurt for a whole year last year, it's just like injury after injury. I was like, okay, what can I do to really help myself have a little bit more lifespan in CrossFit? And that's taking things a little bit slower, bending more when I do clean and jerks, like even dumbbell snatches. I had them yesterday in my WOD, and I was like, I can't do them like everybody else anymore. Like I just can't just hinge over and bend. And I mean, maybe I'll save that for like at a competition for that one day, but during training, it's just not worth it to me anymore. So I'd rather just bend down, make sure my back is staying flat, maybe take it a couple seconds slower, and then have more longevity with that.
Oh my goodness. I love hearing that. Chad, is this something you recommend as well? I would assume keep in that flat back position, take a couple extra seconds to make sure that by the time you're 30, you can still move.
No doubt. I mean, I'm always preaching that, but you know, specifically you're saying bending. And I want to confirm that what you're saying is that bending at the knee more. So basically, in a sense, squatting your deadlifts a little bit more. And I know that a lot of people say that that's a bad thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, we don't want to do a complete squat on your deadlift, and we don't want to deadlift your squats either. But there's a certain, you know, hip height and back angle that's going to create the best overall combination of the body. And I think that's what you're definitely getting at. And the thing is that, as you mentioned with CrossFit, of course, what we see all the time doing low weight, high repetition effort, it's becomes very much what I like to call a rounded back Romanian deadlift muscle snatch, right? Instead of it looking more like what you want your heavy efforts to look like. And the problem with that is that what starts to happen is that your heavy efforts start to look like that more and more. So your body kind of goes to the repetitions that it most knows and what it's most used to, which is that rounded back Romanian deadlift, you know, that we want to stay away from. So, you know, you mentioned that you feel like it's faster the other way and you're okay with doing that on competition day. And I like that mindset. Like, hey, do all your training and your work to perfection as much as you can. And Dave says all the time, you know, don't train a standard, train the ideal. Is, and you say it in different words, Dave, but something along those lines. I haven't listened to you enough, Dave, to memorize everything that you say, but something along those lines. And I really love that. But from your perspective, do you believe that it's possible for, say, good quality movement, say when you're lowering a snatch that you're doing touch and go with, you hit the hip when you go back down to keep the bar close, you lean over and then sink the rest of the way with your legs to then touch and go back up. Do you think it's possible to move as fast, or at least to get as good of a time doing Isabel that way versus if you were doing, again, going back to that rounded back Romanian deadlift? Do you think it's possible to do it as fast if you
100%.
practice in it?
Yeah, 100%. It's just going to be more efficient in the long run too. You know, like if you think about it, you're going to use the correct muscle groups, you know, when you're doing that stuff, you're going to feel stronger. I mean, take for instance, Matt Frazier, like he moves so well, like so pretty. And you have to train it, you know, and sometimes that means like taking a couple steps back and kind of restarting, but in the long run, it's completely worth it. So, and then, you know, like you never want to have, like, that's for me it's really important to like not have bad form at competitions, but you know, worst comes to worst, it happens. But you know, that the more that you train in the correct positions, that it's probably going to happen at competitions as well.
And you're probably in a more protected place too, because you've done that accessory work and your body can kind of handle it. But Chad, I'm curious for you, if you get into a high volume workout, do you ever find yourself losing position like that, going to that Romanian deadlift rounded back position?
That's a great.
I'm just curious if you've done it so much that you've ingrained that position that even at high volume, you can maintain the positions that you do at heavyweight.
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave. And I was just thinking the same thing, you know, as Bethany was talking through that. And I've been, of course, trying to tell people for years, athletes in the community, that it is possible to move at the same speed. And in fact, you might, especially in a long workout with a lot of reps, you might end up getting a better time over time with practice because you are more efficient, especially if you say you're doing a lot of snatches and then a lot of pull-ups in the same workout. Well, if you're doing that rounded back muscle snatch, then you're using more arms than you would be otherwise. So you could be saving those arms for your pull-ups and stuff like that. But it's hard for me to be 100% confident in that, using myself as an example, because no matter how I move, I fatigue very quickly. Like, so like my times aren't great anyway. So like, it's hard for me to express that and use myself as an example. But I have done enough CrossFit over the last more than 10 years now to know, Dave, that my body can't really move in a different way. I mean, it feels wrong. My default movement is locked back, hips at a certain height in the start position. So even when I'm doing touch and go over and over and over again, I hit my hip on the way down, I brush down my quad, lean over and brush down my quad, and then I sink the rest of the way with my legs. And then I go back up from there and do the same thing over and over and over again. The only break that I've noticed in the years, even slightly, is with, really heavy deadlifts in the middle of a WOD. And my position doesn't change, and probably you can't even see a break, but I, as an athlete inside of that movement, can feel my back around slightly. I can feel it. I can feel it give slightly, but it's not enough to where anyone else would probably even see it. It's just so ingrained into my body, and that's what makes me think that, if I can do it as bad as I am at CrossFit and as quickly as I breathe hard, then I know that other people can do it. It's just going to take a long time to get them to that point, and it's going to take them a long time staying away from those compensated reps. And that's the thing, is that if you're doing CrossFit a lot, you love CrossFit, especially if you compete on a high level, how do you ever have that time? So it's exciting to me to hear you, Bethany, talk about that being a focus of yours and trying to make that change.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely sucks when you're not doing the weights. Like the past couple of months, I've had to kind of restart a couple times on like my Olympic weightlifting and stuff. And, it's so easy to compare, and you're like, God, you just like look over to especially now that I'm with like super strong girls and amazing people around me. It's just like, I see them like lifting super heavy, and you're like, oh, I'm just over here lifting 55 pounds and just trying to perfect it. But it pays off, it does. And it's not built over a month, it takes years upon years of doing that. So luckily I had like a pretty good base. So I've had to just tweak it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, and to piggyback on the other thing, I think it helps with recovery too, especially if you're at a competition and lifting correctly. Or, I mean, and daily training, you're just able to recover better because your back isn't broken, or something's not
you're using your whole body. You're using your whole body in better coordination, a better combination of it. You're taking the extreme stress off of isolated portions of your body. But, same thing on the other side there, Dave. Is there anything in CrossFit that you find yourself breaking in when it comes to gymnastics? And then the same thing for you, to back that up, Bethany, since you were a gymnast as well, were you able to maintain those positions better than with your Olympic lifts initially?
I mean, from my side of things, Chad, I think I fall in the same boat as you do, with just having done something so long a particular way that I've ingrained, as an example, like handstand push-ups. Like my handstand push-ups, I can move fast because my shoulders are strong and the position is actually pretty comfortable for me. But I always go to shoulder width, tripod position, head way out in front of hands, much more tricep activated handstand push-up rather than one that might be considered faster, hands out wide, shortening the distance, head closer to the wall. I don't do that because I'm not comfortable there. It's not the position that and it also doesn't have transferability to other things that you're going to be utilizing in terms of how that arm position moves. The position that I utilize is more similar to something like a strict press, or how you would utilize it for even like a bar muscle up type of an action. So the gymnastics background, decades of doing it, has kind of taught me a pattern that I can still kind of keep in place even as I start to fatigue. But I think my goal is less about speed and more about creating efficiency and keeping a good movement pattern throughout the entire workout and trying to hit maximum intensity with good position intact. That's kind of always what I try to do. Like, I don't try to supersede intensity over technique and position. I try to say, how fast and how intense can I be within this workout, but making sure that my position stays intact. And that's kind of the goal that I try to stay. It's funny, I did a sandbag workout that Jordan gave me yesterday. And I was trying so hard to keep my back, like sandbag squats and then some deadlifts. And I was trying so hard to keep my back in a good position. And I was like, okay, I know my back's going to be blown out of it because we did a ton of reps. I went to put the sandbags away. And as soon as I put the sandbags away, I like rounded back, picked them up terribly. I was like, I just did 200 reps with this sandbag, like perfect. As soon as I put it down, I pick it up poorly. I was like, why does that happen? But for me, my lower back is still something that happened ingrained. The gymnastics patterns are fully ingrained. So something I definitely know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think efficiency is speed, at the end of the day. So I think it's important what you're saying when you're not even working out, it's those little habits that you do to add up, either good or bad. So like when I'm doing accessory work and I'm putting the kettlebells down or whatever dumbbells, I try to flatten my back and not just hunch over, because like that stuff adds up. And then that stuff's gonna, relay into your workouts and exercises too. So it's the tiny
I love that so much.
habits.
Absolutely. It's something that I kind of reiterate with when we teach and stuff in chat. I'm sure the same way. I'll tell people that there's a distinct start and finish to every exercise you do. And you have to understand how you approach the movement, how you finish the movement, and all of it is encompassed within the actual skill. Not just as an example with a muscle up, you're not done when you're above the rings in support. That's not the completion of the movement. The completion of the movement is when you come back down to the ground, you release the rings. So people have a full understanding of what's happening through the entire movement. So I completely agree with you in terms of the importance of starting and finishing with purpose.
Yeah. What an opportunity to accumulate extra reps towards quality and what you want to reinforce. And, not enough people think about that for sure. When I work with athletes and say we're doing a snatch from the knee, and so they pick up the bar from the floor to then lower it back down and set up, the second that they pick it up with the rounded back and their hips really high, I'll go ahead and let them pick it up, but then I'll tell them to put it back down and do it again, because I want to see a perfect snatch deadlift to get into that standing position to then set up. And in fact, for athletes that have given me trouble with that, instead of writing their workout as 3 snatches from the knee, I had to say 1 snatch deadlift plus 3 snatches from the knee. You know what I'm saying? Just to kind of trick them and leave them with less choice to mess up. But I'm very curious, the same question for you, Bethany, when it comes to gymnastics, since you were a gymnast, did you find yourself able to maintain those positions better?
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me was all the kipping movements, because everything was like very strict in gymnastics, like strict handstand push-ups and pull-ups and even like strict bar muscle ups, so that was like a really hard thing for my mind to wrap around. And it actually took me a while to get like kipping movements and butterfly movements, because I was like, this is just so foreign to me. I just don't get it. But I definitely found myself at one point, like, especially with handstand walks, like arching over a ton, and it still happens, but I've realized that that's going to put a lot of pressure on my lower back and cause me to have a lot of pain when I go into another movement, because it's not just handstand walk that you're doing, it's some type of Olympic weightlifting movement, or I don't know, some type of other exercise. It's a hinging movement. So I definitely found myself like doing more of that. So it's just trying to find a balance of like what's going to be the most efficient way to do it, but also be safe. But yeah, same with like the handstand push-ups and pull-ups and all of that. It's what Dave was saying, and finding those positions that we've always been doing the last decade or 2 decades, you just find yourself doing again. So it's good, and I'm thankful to have that background of gymnastics and the perfect form that we had to have and all of that. So, but it's crazy to see like how different it is in CrossFit. Like everyone's just everywhere with their body, and you're just like, oh, I just watched and I'm like, oh my gosh, my body hurts for you. So yeah. And then like obviously my body doesn't even let me do some of that stuff anymore. So I'm just like, I just can't.
Well, you actually have a pretty interesting background as an athlete. We're talking a little bit about your gymnastics background, which you did when you were younger, but it transitioned into a lot of phases before you actually got into CrossFit. You did triathlons for a while, you were in bodybuilding. How did those, gymnastics and triathlon are probably as polar opposite as you can get. How do you
Weightlifting.
go, and weightlifting, right? Yeah. But how do you go through those phases as an athlete growing up and say, this is the next thing for me to be able to take on a challenge that's so different than probably what your body was accustomed to?
Yeah, no, I think I was just trying to find something that resembled gymnastics for me, because I just enjoyed it so much. It was my life for so long. And when I had to quit because of my back just, I went through a series of doctors, and the doctors are like, yeah, dude, you're done. So
and wait, how old were you when that happened? When
12.
you were 12 and your back was already basically
So
shot
bad.
at 12 years old? Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty sad. And so, the doctors say those extreme things of like, you'll never run again, you'll never tumble again. They're like, you should just stick to swimming. And so I ended up taking like a full year off from like 12 to 13, didn't do anything. I was just in so much pain. Like it would just go out on me to the point like an old lady, and I just have to lay in bed for a couple of days. I'm like, this is insane. Why am I going through so much pain at 12 years old? But that was just my story. So because the doctor said I wasn't ever going to be able to run, I was like, that's the first thing I'm going to do is run. So I couldn't do short distance sprinting, but long distance felt fine on my back. So that's kind of just where I started. And just to get some type of like mental release, I was just like, I need to do something. So I just started running long distance, did some 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, transitioned into triathlons from there. And I enjoyed all the stuff that I did, but it wasn't like, yes, this is what I want to do. But I'm so thankful that I did all the things that I did, because there were tiny little puzzle pieces that I think helped me do well in CrossFit so quickly. The only thing that I didn't do was touch a barbell ever. I was too scared to. Like when I did bodybuilding competitions, I only did machines and dumbbells, which played to my favor the first year at regionals, because there was literally zero barbells that year. I was like, what?
It was a sad year, such a sad year.
It was a happy year for me. So that was like the one thing that was very foreign to me. Like even just putting a barbell on my back to back squat, I was like, oh, this is scary. I don't know how to do this. And then I was like, what is a snatch? What is a clean and jerk? So that's been like a huge learning curve for me. But I think having all the body awareness from gymnastics has helped me do pretty decent in it. The strength part just isn't there, that I'm still trying to work on. And it's just like a continuing thing that I just honestly haven't been through like a full strength cycle, because my back always like gets injured or like something always pops up. So it's just trying to find the balance of the volume that I need. And I think I did a lot of junk volume when I was in my teenage years, just stupid runs and hours of working out in my garage, just like 5 hours of just nonsense, which kind of helps me in CrossFit because that's what we do, but it's just more programmed out. But yeah, like I'm very thankful for all the things that I got to do. And there were definitely puzzle pieces to help me do well in CrossFit so far.
What actually happened to your back when you were 12? It seems like your back injury is still something you're working on. I don't know if it's the same injury that's kind of reoccurring, but what actually happened, and kind of, is it something that's still lingering now into your late 20s that you're working through?
So there's a lot of mystery behind it, but not. So it's just bulging discs that I have in my back, like L4, L5. And I recently just got another MRI done just to like make sure it was just that, and it hadn't like increased or anything had changed. But I think it just hits people differently sometimes. I feel like everyone has bulging discs. If you look at like 100 people's backs, 99% of the people are going to have a bulging disc somewhere. So I think because it's been so long, mine's connected more to stress. So like when I'm more stressed out, which happens, more towards like competitions, that's usually when it goes out on me. So because of that, I haven't had like a healthy year at a competition because I allowed the mental side to get to me. So that's one thing that I've really been working on this past year and a half, is that mental game, because that's so much of it competing, so much of it. If you can't keep your head on straight, then you're just going to fall apart, because we're all fit. We're all fit. Everybody at the CrossFit Games is fit. That's not the issue. We all work hard in the gym, but it's that mental side. So I think it's more of that. I think there is like taking a couple steps back and not just using my back for everything has been helping me a lot. But I think there's just more of a mental side to it that I've had to really conquer, because there shouldn't be a reason why I've had this back injury from like 12 to 27. Doesn't make sense with with bulging discs. It's nothing crazy. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just something that it's like an up and down thing. It's definitely gotten better, and it's definitely gotten a lot stronger than it was when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. But it just kind of pops up, and I've just realized and noticed that it's more when, you know, life's out of order. There's a lot of stress going on outside of the gym, or just like near competitions, and learning how to deal with that a little bit better. So hopefully.
Well, I'm sure that this year, being that competitions were a little bit lighter than normal. Yeah. Maybe the stress was a little bit less aggravating for the back, and maybe that gave you the ability to kind of reset some things and get things back in place before the season 2021 starts. For sure. Yeah. And I think I think working on yourself too is really important. And I just didn't do a lot of that in the past. Just doing like a lot more like self-help, self-improvement outside of the gym, because I think there's such a missing piece for a lot of people that they just don't want to keep growing. Especially when they get out of school or whatever that looks like. And I never went to college, so I just kind of stopped and was like, I know I want to be in the fitness industry. I want to train. I just want to work out all the time. But there was like a missing piece for me. So I think finding that and just kind of digging a little bit deeper into that side of things has helped me a lot. So I'm excited to kind of see how that plays out this year, and being able to kind of like have a better, I guess, head on my shoulders with that. Yeah. Speaking about the mental side of things, you know, you brought it up, the importance of having a strong mental game. I think when you watch, you know, somebody like a Tia and somebody like a Matt out there, right? You know, their physical presence is so evident. You can see how just amazing they are with whatever movement is thrown at them. But there also is a mental component that you can kind of see with them. You can see them go out there and they kind of have the attitude of, you're going to have to beat me today. There's no way I'm going to beat myself. There's no way that, you know, I'm not leaving here at the top of the podium unless someone kind of does something extraordinary. I'm curious, one, if you notice that in some other competitors, being one yourself out on the competition floor, and if it's something that you said you've put some emphasis on over the past year, if you're working with someone specific that has been able to help you do that, or if it's something that you've just been able to do on your own, spending more time on focusing on it. Yeah, no, I've been working with a coach with that. He's been really awesome the last couple of months. But I also just like doing stuff on my own too. I think it takes both. You can't just do one. And then continuing it too. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to do it once. It's kind of like eating healthy. If you just eat healthy once, you're not just going to get abs, you know, or you're not going to feel better. So it's a continual process that I think you just have to do and make it a part of your new lifestyle and make it habitual. So, yeah. And I think when you look at the top competitors too, they're not doing it for other people. They're doing it for themselves. And I think that's an important thing to kind of realize is you have to do this stuff for yourself. Yeah. Because like, I think for me, a tiny bit of a tipping point was getting 8th place 2 years ago, or in 2019. I like wasn't happy with it. And that's such a great accomplishment to have, is to say that I got 8th place at the CrossFit Games. And there's just like no satisfaction behind that. And you just have, I think for me, I just was like, okay, if I get on the podium, there's probably going to be no satisfaction if I can't even be happy for myself at 8th place, or there's not going to be an amount of money that's going to make me happy, you know? So I think kind of putting that in perspective and just figuring out why you're doing this stuff and doing it for yourself, and not just doing it because you want to beat people and be number one, you know, like that stuff maybe holds up for a little bit, but it's not like a long-term thing. And that's kind of where I'm at with my head too, is
I want to be the best version of myself. And I know that's very cliche to say, but I think it's important to do that and say that, because no one else is going to be on that podium with you, or no one else is going to be in the middle of that workout for you. Like, you have to do this stuff for yourself at the end of the day and be happy with your performance. And so that's kind of where I'm at with training too, is not every workout's going to be my best, but as long as I'm giving the best effort that I can for each exercise and each workout, then that's success for me.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And Chad, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too, in terms of the mental side, what you were doing. But I remember early on in my career, maybe I was still in college, or maybe even still at the end of my high school, I did an interview for something, and somebody asked me like my biggest fear in terms of competing, and I said letting other people down. Yeah. And I was really scared of failing other people, my coaches and my parents and the people that were investing time and energy in me. And somebody read it, I don't know if it was my mom or my coach, and said like, this shouldn't happen. Like, you need to be doing this for you. You need to be trusting that we're in your corner no matter what, because we trust that you're doing everything you can to succeed. And that was a huge relief for me, because I had never like verbalized that before. And it was just more internal of me saying, I don't want to let these people down, because they're putting so much effort and financial, whatever it means to see me succeed. And to know that people are behind you no matter what, it gives you the ability to say, okay, I'm doing this for myself, so that, I can really just focus my time and energy, my mental state, on making every day better for me, rather than on, whether or not someone else is
people pleasing.
Happier. Exactly. I think that's such an important concept. Chad, what about you on the mental side?
Yeah, no doubt. I relate to that very much. And in the end, like you guys say, it is, and you hear this too, it's cliche, but the thing about those types of things is that you can say them over and over again, or you can hear them, but unless you really take it in, or unless you have the experience that leads you to just completely understand it to the highest level, we are competing against ourselves. Like you said, Dave, Tia and Matt, they're only going to beat themselves. They're basically out there just doing the best that they possibly can. And that just ends up to them beating everyone else. They're not really worried about too much what other people are doing or what other people are thinking or letting anyone else down. They're just being the best versions of themselves. And that's where you're going to find the best competitors. Absolutely. But, as far as for other people, yeah, for too many years, I was fixated on that. And it was to the point to where, I didn't want to tell my family and my friends not to come watch me. But at the same time, I knew that even though I appreciated them coming and their effort, every single person that came was adding more stress to me, was adding more negative emotions and feelings, and taking away from my performance. Every single extra person that came. So if there's 10 people there, I'm in a lot of trouble, because now I've got that stacked up against me, and just learning somewhere along the way that, yes, I'm doing this for myself, but at the same time, understanding the benefit that they get out of being there. What do they get out of it? Well, they have an opportunity to travel. They have an opportunity to be around each other as family and friends, and to have that experience together, to be there with me. I get to hang out with them and spend time with them, whereas I normally don't do a lot after the competition's over with. And that really helped me change my perspective a whole lot in that regard. And now it's to the point to where the more people that come, the more energy, positive energy that gives me. So it's a stressor, or an energy that I can use for the positive now, as opposed to it taking away from me. And I can tell that story, and I've told that a similar story a lot, but it's really hard for people to take that in. I understand that. How are you going to get, as a competitor, or whatever you do in life, how are you going to get to the point to where you can perform to the best of your ability without worrying about letting other people down? That's a tough question to answer. But I think the big thing is just experience in putting things in perspective and understanding that you are doing it for yourself, that you're in control, and also what other people are getting out of it, and that they're not going to be disappointed in you. There's nothing that you can do to disappoint them if the effort is there. And I had to tell Ella that the other day too. Dave, we were talking the other day about her competing and everything else. And she's worried about, letting people down and everything else. And, trying to get the point across to her that the only thing that matters to me is effort. At 11 years old, she probably can't completely understand that. So all I can do is, keep reminding her of that and telling her in different ways. And that's true for everybody at every age, giving effort. Did you do the best that you could do, or did you do in that moment what you felt was best and what was going to bring out the best in you? And of all my failures in my career, and I've had some big, extremely disappointing ones, I can gladly say that I wouldn't have done anything different, because I did in that moment what I felt was best for me to perform to the best of my ability. It just didn't work out,
Yeah. You can live with it if that's the case, right?
Yep.
If you didn't, no regrets in that sense. Bethany, I have a question about what's going on now. You said you moved recently from Texas out to Vegas, and we had Kari Pearce on the podcast not that long ago, and it was kind of right when I think she had been moving out there. And it seems like you guys have quite a group out there now. What is it like now training with, I don't know if you had some elite athletes that you were training back in Texas, but now having a whole crew that are all pushing each other, what's the difference now being able to train with such a great group as opposed to what was happening in Texas?
Yeah, no, it's completely different. It's crazy. And it's what I needed. I think it was good where I was at for the time being, in Texas. And I did have people to train with. I was blessed with that. But I kind of felt like I hit my ceiling there, and I was just ready for the next step. And so I think for me too, I had a little bit of a low self-esteem and a little bit of self-doubt. And I wanted to give myself excuses of why I didn't do well at competition. And I was putting energy into other things. Like I was doing some coaching, which I love coaching, but I think there's a time and a place for that. And for like the next couple of years, my goal is to just give it all and not give myself excuses. And I think that's what I was kind of doing in Texas, and kind of just like hanging out, and but I had like a lot of awesome support out there, and a great community too. But coming out to Vegas, it's game time now. It's eat, sleep, train. And I just want to, for the next couple of years, like I said, not give myself excuses of why I didn't do well at a competition, why I wasn't sleeping enough, why I wasn't recovering enough, why I wasn't pushing myself hard enough in training. And I think being out here, I don't have excuses. Like it's such a great experience, and it's not everything. I think there's a time and a place where you can train by yourself, and I think it is good to do that. But now I feel like I'm at a place where I need that push, and I'm getting that. Kari is an awesome competitor, and she's amazing out of the gym and in the gym. And Danielle is super gifted and talented. So to be able to be around two games athletes every day and compete against them and do workouts with them has just been incredible. So yeah, I've already felt like such a big difference even in this past month, just being out here.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit like Olympic Training Center. I was feeling the same thing, like going from a situation where you're training by yourself to now where you have people that are pushing you on a daily basis that, might be better than you in certain areas, that you can say like, okay, I'm not the best in my space anymore. This gives me something to chase, something to go after on a daily basis. And there's something to that, right? To know that you have somebody right next to you that is maybe pushing when you don't want to push, and say, okay, I have to do this today, even if I don't want to. Whereas if you're doing it on your own, gives you a little bit more leeway to say, you know what, I'm just going to go home today. So I love this idea of kind of getting into groups. And you guys are all super strong with gymnastics too. I have to say that, the three of you guys are putting on a little gymnastics tutorial. But you have Justin kind of coaching you guys. Is that right? Is he kind of leading the programming and what you guys are doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, Justin, he's coaching all of us, and then we have a couple of guys too. So yeah, it's a big, training crew out there for sure. It's cool because I don't think, well, other than comp train, there really hasn't been girls together in one place that live together in the same place. So I think that's just like a cool thing to see in CrossFit, is some girls like coming together and like helping each other out. Because yes, we all have the same goal, We all want to do our best at the CrossFit Games and go to the CrossFit Games every year. But I think to just have somewhat of like a team aspect of it in the individual sport, it's just really cool to have that.
Absolutely.
Really important too.
And what would you say your goal is right now for this upcoming year? I mean, I know things are probably still a little bit up in the air with what competitions are actually happening, but
Yeah.
you mentioned kind of goal setting. Is your goal setting more revolving around trying to improve on that 8th place finish, trying to get up on the podium, or is there something more kind of just being able to reach your maximum capacity and achieve what you think you can do physically?
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely want to do better, but that's not like the main goal is like necessarily a spot. I think for me, it's just one, having a healthy year. That's the most important thing. And I think if I can have a full healthy year and go to a competition and feel like, oh, wow, I don't feel like I'm injured right before I go, I think I'm going to be able to do that and improve on my placement. And then two, just working more on that mental side. I think if I can go into the gym every single day and focus on just that piece on that day and not focus on what happened yesterday or the piece before that or what's going to happen the next day, I think that's where I'm going to find success too. And then just not having like that a victim mindset. I think that when people have chronic injuries, we get into like a victim mindset of like, oh, we can't do this, oh, woe is me. And I definitely found myself in that the last couple of years. And so I think just changing my mindset around is like, no, I can do this. Like I have all the tools. It's just putting the tools all together at the same time. And so I think I'm going to give myself the best possible chance of allowing that all to kind of happen at the same time. So yeah, that's kind of like the goal in the next couple of years. My goal is to compete for another 3 years. And then like, I want to have kids, I want to have a family. And then if I can, I would love to keep competing, like even after I have kids, because it's just always been a part of me. And I really enjoy competing and I love being on the floor. But for the next 3 years, like my goal is to just give it everything I got and just see kind of what happens and where the pieces fall, and not have any regrets on anything. So if 8th place is the best that I do ever, then I'm happy with that, but I think there is more in the tank for me as long as I can get all the pieces to align, which is what I'm doing right now, is setting myself up for that.
Yeah, it sounds like everything is kind of in place. Go ahead, Chad.
I was going to say, I love that you have your plan so dialed in or seemingly dialed in. It's easy to, perceive things a little bit different than maybe they are. But, being that it looks like you've got it so dialed in, did that come easy? Have you always been someone that created these types of plans and look to the future in this way? Or is this something that's happened along the way and you figured out that you had to make that happen?
I think yes and no. Like I've always been a big planner and I've always been a little bit more mature than my age. I think just in gymnastics in general, you kind of have to grow up, especially like when you grow up in the gym. Like I was there from 7:00 in the morning until 7:00 at night. And I went to school there. So you just learn how to be a little bit more independent, younger. And so I think for me, I've always just like had these goals and plans and then I just attack them. So like I finished high school in 3 years because I just didn't like high school and going to school. So I finished my senior year and half my junior year in 3 months. And I was just like, I'm done, like I'll be there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., get all my work done, and then I'm done. So I've always like had like little things like that. I've always been like kind of a black sheep in my family. Never, like I said, never went to college. Just, I knew what I wanted to do. Start personal training at 17, first person in my family to get a job out of the kids, even though I was the youngest. So I've just always been very like oriented with like wanting to get things done and task oriented. So, but yeah, so I think that's always been kind of like a part of me. I think that gymnastics definitely embedded that in me. And I'm super thankful that I had, that experience to grow up and be independent. So yeah.
Sure. Now, do you actually have stuff written down in a calendar, like 3 years from now, you have a date set, or even just, through a year or 6 months or a week or a month, whatever it may be? Or are these just things that you kind of mark in your head and they're there?
Mostly mark in my head. I do journal a lot. So kind of like at the beginning of the year, I'll kind of set some goals for myself or like set some intentions or like a word So like the word this year and last year was like focus and then build. So it's like focus in a little bit more and then build on that. So that's kind of like the 2 words that I'm really trying to use this year. And then, I think just saying it, I say it out loud a lot. I think that's important. There's like, I was reading a book called Atomic Habits. It's pretty, I'm sure y'all guys know that book, but there's like something with like pointing and saying. And so like, I try to do a lot of that and like say it out loud, to people that I respect or that I trust. But yeah, I think it's important to like either write down your goals, say it out loud to people. And then for me, I think just journaling and then just applying that and attacking that every single day is important.
Yeah. What you talk about journaling? And I think I read somewhere about that's something daily that you do. What does that process look like for you? So how long do you do it, and what types of things do you write down, and what's the ultimate purpose for it?
Yeah, it's different. So like lately, I think because like I kept a good schedule coming out to Vegas, but like when you get into a new environment, it's a little crazy at first. So lately it's been the first thing that I do when I sit down is 5 things that I'm grateful for or thankful for. And it could be anything simple like, I'm just thankful for this quiet time that I'm getting in the morning, or something more detailed, like a goal that I hit or a PR that I hit or just anything, or just the people that I'm around, just being thankful for. Gosh, I have so much more, like there's a lot of support here with the girls and Justin and stuff. So it's just been really amazing being out here with that. And then I also do a devotion too. So I'll do like a daily devotional because I believe in God. And I think it's really important to have something that, even if it's not God, that you believe in. I think there's like something really important to like having a belief system. So like for me, doing a daily devotional and kind of digging in a little bit deeper into the Bible, and just having a little bit of self-reflection. There's usually like a question at the end, so I'll answer that. Or anything that's honestly on my mind. Sometimes there's just stuff that's bugging me that I just need to write down. And I think seeing it on paper sometimes doesn't make it as crazy as it is in your head. Like sometimes we make things a little bit crazier in our head, or we have a bunch of tasks going on, and we just make it all jumbly. So I think writing it out on paper, you're like, huh, not as crazy as it was in my head, a little bit more simple. Or I always have like sticky notes too. So like if I'm journaling and I feel like I'm getting distracted because there's X, Y, and Z that I need to get done, I'll have my sticky pad right next to me. Okay, write down those tasks. All right, now I can get back to my journaling. Right. But yeah, so it's just kind of like whatever's on my mind. And sometimes it's super short. It depends on the day. Or you think that you don't have anything to say, and then you start writing and you're like, oh man, I had like 5 pages of writing to do. So yeah, it kind of varies every day, but I think the biggest thing is doing like the thankful. That kind of just sets the tone for the day, like having just 5 things. The 5 things. There's always things to be grateful for and thankful for. So just clean water, running water, anything like that. So I think that just kind of sets the intention for the day and kind of like lightens the mood. Even if you like wake up and you're like groggy and grumpy, like there's nothing to be groggy and grumpy about. Like we have such a great life here. So
that is amazing. I mean, just absolutely incredible. How much better would our world be if everyone woke up and wrote down 5 things that they're thankful for at the beginning of every single day? But, there's also, as you were talking through that, there's also so much to be said for the discipline that it takes to do that. It's hard to make yourself do, even a little bitty task consistently every single day. And, there was a Navy SEAL motivational speaker that gives a speech that's titled, I think, Make Your Bed. And so what he's saying, you guys may have read the book or whatever else, but what he's saying is that if you'll get up and make your bed first thing, then that simple task is something that will set the tone for the rest of the day, because you accomplished making that bed. You got it done. It's out of your mind. You're not going to worry about the clutter and everything else like that too, but it's an accomplishment that you can, bleed into the rest of the day. And so, I think if people can find even one little thing that even takes them 30 seconds at the beginning of every day or at some point through the day that they can make themselves do consistently every single day, then I think that success can really breed off of that.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely switches the mindset and definitely helps with like more of a positive mindset. Even like, yeah, simple things like my boyfriend's very big on that, is like making the bed every morning, you know, so he got me into the habit of that because I definitely wasn't doing it before. Or just like leaving things better than you came into them. Like even, I think for me, I'm one of those people with like something simple like dishes. If I don't clean the dish right away, it's going to sit in my sink for weeks, you know?
Yeah.
So it's important for me to, when I get done with something, or even when I come home from the gym, shaker bottle from the gym bag, take it out, put it in the sink, wash it, put it away, you know, like just simple tasks like that. You don't realize all that stuff adds up. It just goes back to like even the working out, you know, picking up something correctly and putting it down correctly. Like those small habits add up. And it's the same thing like out of the gym, you know, fold the blankets. If you're going to sit on the couch and you have the blankets all spread out, fold them up before you go to bed. You know, just simple tasks like that just add up. And you're like, life's so much better and easier and happier when you do stuff like that instead of just having clutter everywhere. So, you know, you definitely have those days, and that's where you have to give yourself grace too. When you have those bad days or like there is clutter or whatever, and you're like, I see it. Okay. Let's fix it right now and then move on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm finding that I have a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old, and
a little harder.
I feel, well, it is, but I find on the days when I do the things that you're talking about, I sleep easier. I sleep better because I've, you know, wrangling kids and making sure that they have everything they need throughout the day, and then, you know, me and my wife managing the house, and then you can go to bed and everything can be everywhere, or you can take the time to like put the things away, and then I go to bed and be like, I accomplished that. Like I was able to actually get that done, even with all these other challenges that everybody faces, whether it's a kid or you know, training regimen, whatever it might be. Everyone has their own specific challenges that they're going through. But you're exactly right.
It doesn't take that long either.
No, it doesn't. You know? It doesn't. It's just the mindset
and
exactly when you're done with it. I always find myself like going to bed and I sleep so much better knowing that I actually did those little things. So it's helped me a ton to be able to say, okay, I accomplished that.
It's so funny you guys are talking about that. One, I'm feeling a little bit bad because I'm sitting here remembering, I didn't fold the blankets up last night. I left my dishes in the sink.
Give yourself grace.
And all that stuff. Right?
Give yourself grace.
I do have a few things that I do consistently every day. So I need to just build off that a little bit more. But it's funny because one of the things that I put off almost every year is simply putting my registration sticker on my car, like changing that out. And so I'll let that go for like 6 months, and it's sitting there out of date, and I see it every single day and it bothers me. And I'm like, okay, I'll change it. And then I just never do. And then finally I go out there and change it. And the whole process takes like a minute. And I'm like, you idiot, that didn't take
like,
but a minute of your day. Why didn't you do that when it first came in? It's just amazing. You know, the things that we continue, the little bitty things that, like you guys said, take very little time that we continue to put off and put off and put off. And it's like these TV shows out now that are trying to help people get rid of things, right? To not hold on to them, to get rid of clutter and to minimalize. That's the word I'm looking for. But it absolutely seems true. You know, the less stuff that you have, the less you're responsible for. You know, clearing.
Can we tell that to my daughter with toys? Is it possible to
that would be nice, wouldn't it? It would be nice. But yeah, it's that's awesome. Awesome.
So Bethany, we're almost done, but I have another question. It's so interesting to me, the crew that you have out there right now, and whether or not you guys actually have been able to kind of bond outside of the gym too. You have a lot of common in the gym, but I'm curious if you've been able to actually build some relationship outside of the gym. What are the kind of things that you do now that you're in Vegas with the girls outside of, you know, lifting weights and doing WODs?
Well, a lot of our time is spent in the gym just because it's like 6 or 7 hours of training.
Right.
We've been trying to do a lot of hikes. That's been something really cool that I think it's important for me to move somewhere that I could do a lot of outdoorsy things, because Austin, Texas is very much like that. There's a lot of things to do outside. So it was important for me to find a place that I could still do things like that. And two, I really like the mountains. So I was like, I have to be somewhere where there's mountains because I really like the mountains. So we've been able to do some hikes and stuff. And I think that's cool bonding. And we went on a really bad hike the other weekend. Oof, I don't know. Kari could tell you too. We weren't planning on it. And it ended up being like the straight up incline the entire time. We were like on our hands and knees. And, Justin's like, all right, don't do anything too hard. And we're like, we won't. It's fine. It's a recovery day. And then we get to the top and it takes us like 2.5 hours. And we're like, what did we do to ourselves? Come pick us up. Yeah. But like, it was a cool like bonding experience because it was all of us together and we're all suffering. And we're like, that was a mistake. All right, let's not do that again. So yeah, we've been able to do stuff like that. Danielle's birthday was on Sunday, so we were able to get together and have a little brunch for her. And so yeah, we're just trying to do things on the side where we can. But I know we all like to just be outdoors, and hiking and walking is a cool one for us. So we try to do that as much as possible without.
Awesome. Yeah, I think most people think Vegas and they think the Strip, and they think parties and all the crazy stuff that goes along with Vegas. But there is a lot of that outdoor space that I think probably gets glossed over a lot of times, that people don't realize that Vegas has so much to offer beyond just that one, crazy street that everybody kind of goes to.
Yeah, I mean, I had never been to Vegas until last October, so that was obviously my point of view too. And I was like, Vegas, oh, it's a party city, I don't want to go there. It's in the city. But yeah, there is so much to do, and like everything's so close too. Like you go to the Grand Canyon, there's Tahoe, like there's just so many cool places. It's very central that you can get to pretty easily. So yeah, it's cool to have like the Red Rocks 20 minutes away, and like even driving is just so cool to see, like, oh, there's mountains. It kind of makes you happy. It makes me happy just seeing them. I'm like, such a cool thing.
Well, it sounds like you're in a really good place right now, and it sounds like the upcoming year is going to be a positive one for you. I'm glad to hear that you have some teammates right now to be able to kind of train with, and to feel like you have somebody to push you a little bit, getting ready for the 2021 season. Suffer with, absolutely, as is par for the course with most CrossFit workouts. Couple of last minute questions before we get you out for the day. First one, hoping.
How about we skip this one
here? Chad and I have a running tally on this one, so we'll see what box it ends up in. But what sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
I like gymnastics. Sorry.
Yes.
That's only fair, I guess.
I do enjoy the difference that I get in a weightlifting, because I actually do want to try a weightlifting meet. Because I think it's very scary and very hard to go up by yourself with a barbell and lift. It takes a lot of mental strength. So definitely want to do that just for that aspect of it.
Yeah, we were talking about that just a few days ago with our last recording. And one of the things I recommend to any elite CrossFitter, if they haven't done it, is to jump into a weightlifting competition, because it is different. It's just something that can help your mental game, being exposed to that different type of competition. I felt like it helped me as a weightlifter when I did a couple CrossFit competitions, trying to make it to the games. No, I'm just kidding. I'm terrible at CrossFit, but I did do a couple CrossFit competitions, and I really enjoyed it because it was different than weightlifting. But at the same time, just being exposed to that different stimulus was very helpful. So you should definitely jump into a weightlifting competition for sure.
Yeah. I'll probably get all goose eggs, but that's okay.
No.
Just fling it back.
Well, thank you for the tick in the gymnastics box there. Chad had a good little run the last couple of podcasts, so it's good to get back on the gymnastics side of things. One more question for me. Any guests that you think would be a good fit for the podcast? Anybody you think we should have on?
You're going to have to put Danielle on there.
I guess so. Part of the crew, kind of like finish out the trio, right?
On here. Yeah, for sure.
Just get all three of them.
Actually have Allison here too, Allison Scud. So getting her on here.
Oh,
too.
Wow. You guys have
She's
quite
here
a crew.
for the
That's
week.
amazing.
Yeah.
We'll get the whole all four of you guys on.
That's what I was going to say. The whole team at one time, right? That would be awesome.
Yeah. That'd be crazy.
Well, we'd love to get you guys out at camp too at some time, our Power Monkey camp. Maybe we can make that happen. You guys come out to Tennessee and train with us for a little bit sometime in the future.
Yeah, I want to do some flips. I'm down.
Well, let's see. We have a few more questions here. You mentioned a couple books earlier, and we always want to get recommendations from the guests that we have on for our listeners. Is there anyone that sticks out that you would most recommend?
Yes. I love all the Ryan Holiday books. Those have been amazing. So my favorite one of his is Ego is the Enemy, because we all have an ego, even if we realize that we don't, like if we think that we don't. So that's a really good one. But there's like a trio that comes with it. So it's, I always forget the third one, but it's Ego is the Enemy, Obstacles the Way, and
Stillness is
the
the
third
key.
one. Stillness is the Key. Yes. So those are easy reads too, like quick chapters, and you feel very accomplished very fast with those books. So definitely recommend those. I like Atomic Habits. That was a good one. I love Outlier. That was my first favorite book that I ever read. I love Outlier by Maxwell. What's his first name? Gladwell. Yeah.
Gladwell, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So Outlier is a great book. Love that one. But yeah, Ryan Holiday. Those are my favorites right now. So I'm definitely gonna reread. I'm about to reread them. So get on that.
Yeah, and really just talking about self-help books, I'm curious with both of you guys. I always wonder this. Do you feel like you're really able to apply any of the stuff that you pick up from the book over a long period of time or a short period of time? Is it more just inspiring to you and then, uplifting your spirit?
I think it's both. I think that I think I've been able to take a lot from the Ryan Holiday books, especially with the Ego is the Enemy, and apply that a lot in the last year. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's me. For sure. And then there's just some where there is a lot of inspiration and motivation that comes from it in that moment. But I like to write things down. So when I'm reading, I'll have a notebook out and I'll be like, oh, that's a good point. I need to write it down. So I feel like when you write it down, you're able to kind of remember it a little bit more and then apply it later. So that's just something that I do with some of the books to help me. But
I agree with you. I'm in the same boat with you. If I'm reading a book, a physical book, I'll definitely make notes in it. But I find myself reading a lot on my iPad too, and the pages are almost all yellow, just highlighting everything for me to go back and actually reread. The whole thing is just yellow book now. But I don't think there's anything that kind of becomes long-term changes unless I refer back to them on a consistent basis and go back and say, why did I highlight this? Why was it something that resonated with me when I read it? So that I can kind of keep it fresh in my mind, because there's just so many things that are going on in your daily life that to be able to implement so many of these things is really difficult to do. Right. So it's about taking the ones that really stand out and then reinforcing them with constant kind of refreshers.
Absolutely. Just like what we try to do with coaching and athletics and movement, you got to really pick out what's most important to you at that point in time to really make that change consistent enough, or to do that consistently enough to make the change. So very interested to hear what you guys had to say on that, because it's definitely hard for me to read a book and apply anything, so that's good. But Bethany, it's been
the more you talk about it too, though, too.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Book club.
Book
clubs. We gotta have a Power Monkey book club.
No, it is the more you talk about it too with people, and I think that helps you apply things and makes things stick into your head a little bit more too. So
no doubt.
I try to do.
When I started talking about weightlifting more from coaching more people, I became a better weightlifter. So I wish I would have done it sooner. So I relate to that for sure. But Bethany, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you and get to know you a little bit more. Absolutely looking forward to watching you and seeing what you do in the future. Hopefully we cross paths again at some point soon. Hopefully at Power Monkey Camp, as Dave said before. But do you have anything coming up that you want folks to know about, or any parting words?
So I have Born Primitive line coming up, but it won't be until the end of August. So people have been kind of asking me about that. So be on the lookout for that. And then, just a lot of training going on, and trying to recover and do all that and focus on that a little bit more. But I'm also trying to get some programming up, but that probably won't happen until the end of this year. Just to kind of put a little bit more emphasis on accessory work and activation and warm-ups, because that's what people know me as. So definitely want to put some stuff out. So hopefully I'll be able to do that this year. And so be on the lookout for that stuff as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure that all of our listeners are already keeping up with you, and you're certainly doing a lot of good things, putting out the non-sexy stuff out there on Instagram. I love it. And I know that your program will help a lot of people for sure. And hopefully it can bring some more exposure to that kind of stuff. So guys, be sure to check out Bethany if you haven't already. Follow her on Instagram, mimic some of the movements that she's doing in her videos, and you'll be better off for it. But also be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. Until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.